video got an update. The true longest walkable route on Earth, because it's not actually just from the southern tip of South Africa to this point here in Siberia. Just ask some of our oldest human ancestors. Human beings literally crossed the Bering Strait to make it over to North America and South America.
You think. A while ago, I made a video saying that this walk from South Africa to the outskirts of Russia was the longest possible walk. However, it's
extremely dangerous and probably extremely unlikely. I don't think anyone's been able to do it, but if you really got lucky and you wanted more, well, here you go. You can do more.
Even longer and stretch all the way into the Americas. Now you might be thinking, wait, isn't there like an entire ocean dividing the two continents? And well, yes, the Pacific Ocean does cut through Russia and Alaska. During the winter months, this body of water somewhat freezes over. There's only been 2 recorded cases of people successfully managing to walk across this frozen strait, but it is possible. And assuming that you were resilient,
I mean, it might be harder and harder every year with climate change. I don't know if that, frozen Bering Strait is going to continue to be a thing into the future. So if anyone's going to do this, do it now. I don't want to recommend that though, because you probably aren't going to make it. I'm sorry. Plus, I feel like if you're able to do this walk, you probably are just like a superhuman. If you need to kind of swim across at certain points, why not? So bam, as soon as you make it to the U.S. state of Alaska,
this should be a walk in the park. Now, once you're in America, you just
exactly
have to take the 7,000-mile journey.
This would actually not be that. I mean, it wouldn't be fun in Canada and Alaska because it's so cold up there. But yeah, you can literally just hitchhike or walk down the Pan American Highway. I don't know if hitchhiking would technically count. If you did get to hitchhike, you'd have a much better chance of survival, I will say that. You can go all the way down again to Chile and Argentina this way. Although this gap,
the coast and into Panama. It's at
there
this
it
point
is.
where your journey will once again come to a halt as the infamous
yeah, but I was seeing that people do make the journey.
Things like gang violence and diseases
you
like
can
malaria.
cross through it though.
While it is dangerous, it still is technically possible to make it
there you
through.
go.
So assuming you emerge unscathed, now it's just a clear shot through the Andes mountain range towards this town in Argentina. Now this is the true longest walkable route.
Imagine if someone could do this. Imagine if someone did this. There's got to be people on Earth that are trying to, or maybe I'm sure they already have. Clearly they didn't make it because I'm not hearing anything about it. Apparently this man did the longest route in human history, walking from this very tip of Alaska all the way down to Argentina. It was about 20,000 miles. He did it back in the 70s and 80s though. Me trying to find a good spot for my house in Minecraft. How my parents went to school. I'm watching this as if I were to do the journey. Due to things like gang violence and malaria, my brother, you crossed Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, possibly El Salvador. Yeah, if you could do this walk, I mean, that doesn't even consider the things you went through in the Middle East and Africa. I'm sure the Darien Gap in Panama is probably lesser on the dangerous things you've done at that point. That was an updated video by Reed Schultz Geo. The most disputed region on Earth. We're obviously talking about the South China Sea, but I don't know. It might have the most countries involved in this dispute, but I mean, one disputed region I'm thinking about right now is Kashmir. That only has 3 players, India, Pakistan, and China, but all of them are nuclear, which I feel like makes this, I mean, again, it depends, but definitely scarier maybe. This region could still get the title for most
South China Sea, the East
most
Vietnamese
disputed.
Sea, the West Philippine Sea. You see what I mean? Not even the name can be agreed upon. And all this
yeah, I know. I mean, I call it the South China Sea, but that's generally what I think a lot of people use, even though that doesn't necessarily claim that China has all this.
From the fact that every country in the world is allowed to own up to 200 nautical miles away from their coast.
And
this just allows countries to do things like oil mining near their mainland without the threat of other nations trying to steal the resources. However, when you have this many countries all bunched up in
maybe just call it the Southeast Asia Sea. Well, if you do that, then Vietnam's gonna want it.
Things are bound to go south pretty quickly. For example, Brunei's ocean claim looks pretty normal, but once we add in the claims of Malaysia, the Philippines, and Vietnam, the issue starts to become pretty clear. But perhaps the wildest claim of all is that of China, who essentially said, I don't care what anybody else thinks, I'm gonna claim the entire sea.
That's
China
the really
most
big
likely
one.
had its eye on the huge amounts of oil the sea possessed and wanted all that to itself. In fact, they wanted it so bad that they literally built artificial islands in this region to validate their claim. And
yes, and if you do not, if you don't support this, ban. -1 billion social credit score.
Taiwan claiming the same exact ocean space as China.
Funny.
What this means is that
that makes sense
6
for Taiwan.
different countries all fighting for access to the same space, making this sea the most disputed region on the planet.
Yeah, I guess I can't really argue with that claim, just the most disputed, just because there are so many players involved. I see so many articles about, like, also the Philippines and China really getting into it over the sea. Teacher, let's finger paint. Everyone, literally no one, hawked kid named Paint. Those who, what? What the Taiwan claiming their exclusive economic zone 30 times larger than themselves is just hilarious. I'm from the Philippines and I say that Southeast Asian countries has their right to claim over that sea. Yeah, I feel like the most radical claim is just China saying, no, that's all theirs. ASEAN countries unite. We Filipinos don't even want those oils. We just want to fish. USSR rejected this country. I mean, if you think about it, the USSR rejected, well, kind of it depends. I don't know if the word is rejected. One country for sure they rejected was Mongolia. Mongolia did formerly want to be a part of the USSR back before World War II.
USSR.
They'd rather keep them as a border state.
In Turkey because of Turkish Straits,
but
which
they
was
did
crucial
want
for Soviet maritime activities.
Honestly, Russia still to this day probably wants that strait that Turkey has, just to guarantee, you know, ship safety passing through the strait.
World War II, Soviets viewed Turkey as a threat to their southern flank near the Caucasus.
Yeah, I mean, literally in World War I, the Ottoman Empire at the time, basically Turkey was fighting the Russians right there.
Still has some affection left for the no Germans.
Oh, no Germans. Whoa! I've never seen anyone else use that term. That's crazy. No Germans.
No Germans. So USSR demanded naval bases along the strait, claiming that parts of eastern Turkey belong to Georgia.
Is that the origin story? How they pulled Greece and Turkey into the same military defense organization? Because those are some pretty big rivals too. I'm not sure exactly how the USSR rejected Turkey with this. It's not like Turkey wanted to be a part. Well, I guess they wanted the ports. They wanted land that Turkey had. Turkey joins NATO. Russia, well, frick. So this is the reason why Turkey joined NATO. Pretty much, yeah, the USSR was very aggressive with Turkey, so that's why they needed support. I mean, again, Turkey, the Turks and the Russians of that region, they've always had a pretty big rivalry in history. They are literally natural geographical enemies. Like, they have to be against each other. I mean, this clearly shows it. Both of them just threaten each other's sovereignty too much. Yet Turkey definitely never wanted to join the USSR. That video was by InfoHub. Other countries that got rejected by the USSR, rejected in quotations there.
Maybe USSR was just a chill guy who loved to reject countries.
Maybe.
Firstly, Bulgaria got rejected by the Soviets as it sat next to Yugoslavia, and controlling Bulgaria meant a direct war with Yugoslavia.
I mean, there wasn't even like contiguous territory, but then again, Russia, modern day, has Kaliningrad, which is not contiguously part of their country's territory.
Neither it had any coastline to any important waters. Then, Yugoslavia, led by this guy, couldn't join the USSR as he wasn't a chill guy and didn't subordinate to Soviet control. Anyway, subscribe or you're not having any gift.
What? That was definitely a twist I wasn't expecting. I think a lot of times people forget that the Soviet Union was a union of other countries, sometimes referred to as republics of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. So people wanting to join them it's not actually that crazy. It's not like just some random nation wanting to join an empire. Like, they tried to market themselves as like, hey, anyone can come on in, even though that obviously wasn't the case. But yeah, you had places like Armenia and Azerbaijan and Belarus and Estonia and Georgia and Kazakhstan. The list goes on and on and on and on. Soviet Union being a chill guy, nah. Soviet Onion being a chill guy. Soviet Union, don't bother me, I have knee surgery tomorrow. Soviet Union, I'm just a chill guy, starts a Cold War. How did every major country react to the Soviet Union falling?
In 1991.
1991. Well, I would assume the USA is obviously having a blast. They was partying out here.
Unsurprisingly ecstatic when they heard the news and began
because that opened up so many new markets. Capitalism was about to explode.
Towards denuclearization and fostering better relations with the new Russian Federation.
Yep.
The UK and France were also pretty hyped and began pushing to expand NATO into the former Eastern Bloc states.
Yes.
Germany became united again, but now had to...
I feel like only the former communist world's not going to love... Well, actually, Eastern Europe is a little bit different. I'm thinking of China, for instance. I'm trying to think of like places that weren't happy about the fall of the USSR.
Trillions
there
of
definitely
dollars
was.
to develop the much poorer eastern half of the country, and so were a little less happy. Finally, China thought the whole thing was avoidable because Gorbachev's reforms had been implemented poorly, and they now had to worry about America focusing on them now after Russia was no longer a threat.
I wish we covered more countries here. I want the entire world. Cuba was probably super not happy. Cuba back here being one of the only communists deep behind enemy lines right here next to the USA, and you know, the Soviets helped out Cuba a lot. There's probably a lot of places that felt neutral. There was probably a lot of non-aligned nations that weren't on either side of the Cold War. Maybe was happy about it, also maybe not. It just depended on your view of the USSR. North Korea definitely probably wasn't happy. I don't know about Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. Russia was no longer a threat. Well. Soviet falls, North Korea cries, becomes poor. I would like to see this video like expanded into like a 30-minute going to each individual country, and it'd be hard to find out like how Uruguay, for instance, felt about the fall of the USSR. But I'm interested. That video is by History Now. How did the rest of the world react to, or the rest of Europe specifically? How did Europe react to American independence? Okay. Because in terms of the world, remember that most of the world was still like a colony under European empire. So I'm thinking like a lot of the nations, obviously in Latin America, were very ecstatic because maybe they could see that for their own future. It probably emboldened them quite a bit.
Independence in 1776.
Brits
the
out.
French openly supported the American cause.
Well, yeah, the French, obviously, the French were the main reason why we won the American Revolution. Europe actually loved this. Most of the European countries. The British were just way too powerful. Look at all the countries that helped support us. It was the French, the Spanish, the Dutch. Maybe some Native American tribes weren't happy the British Empire lost, but that's about it. Maybe these Germans that just want to get paid.
He supported the American cause and would eventually join the war against the British.
Also
playing
the Spanish.
a crucial role during the fighting. The Spanish would also do the same, but were less enthusiastic about U.S. independence due to it potentially sparking independence movements in Spain.
Yep, and they were right. Spain, still to this day, playing diplomatic games because they don't want to lose even more land.
America, and so they were just in it to screw over the British for now.
Russia,
Prussia, and
kind
Austria
of in a way that was also the French,
but secretly supportive of American efforts to check British power.
I could see
However,
that.
they were concerned about the anti-monarchy ideas of Americans spreading to their countries, and so they never supplied aid to either
That's
side.
a very
Finally,
good point.
The Dutch sold
because
weapons.
those ideas obviously would take shape in Europe, anti-monarch. So it was probably like a weird, like everyone loved that the British took a giant L, but they were scared of the resulting ideas that would spread out of the American Revolution. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It obviously did. The French, especially with the French Revolution,
were divided on who to favor, and so there was no desire for the Dutch to further anger the European superpower next door, so they decided to stay out of it.
Maybe the Dutch were a bit more split, certain forces in the Netherlands trying to stay neutral. France trying not to join a fight against the British, impossible challenge. The French involvement in the independence cost so much money it eventually led to the French Revolution. It's actually really funny because you can look at so much of the territorial expansion that we had in the US in our history, and a lot of it is just due to all the other countries in the world just didn't want the British to get it. Like the Louisiana Purchase and obviously the sale of Alaska from Russia to us. The world despising the British Empire ended up growing the US so much in the first 150 years. Without the French, America would not have achieved independence, is what I'm hearing. Yeah, basically that. Yeah, we owe them everything. San Marino's role in World War II. The micronation inside of Italy?
More exciting than you may think. The
Let's see.
micronation bolstered an army of around 20 soldiers when
20
the war
soldiers.
began. So why am I claiming that their role was exciting?
I'm sure it was exciting. Remember that Italy was a part of the Axis. They were helping out the No-No Mustache Man.
Well, this is because San Marino was the second nation in the world to turn ultra-nationalist, as they followed the footsteps of Italy from 1923 to 1943.
That's an interesting fact. I didn't realize San Marino was the second to go fascist.
Italy was a one-party state and a de facto dictatorship led by Giuliano Gozzi. So, why is this interesting? Well, when Italy was invaded from the south,
by the
central
Allies,
government eventually collapsed, leading to Germany to take over the northern part. As the Allies were advancing towards the north, Germany occupied San Marino as to complete the defensive Gothic line. After the Allies took the city, San Marino was liberated and declared war on Germany. This is the only case where a fascist nation was invaded by another fascist country, but also the fascist San Marino briefly joined the Allies.
That's funny.
Now this is a plot twist.
Okay, that is pretty interesting. San Marino was the reason the Hyper Finns died. San Marino nationalists. Turkey and San Marino didn't sign an official peace treaty, so two countries still at war. Poor San Marino, bro got invaded by her own ally. Nice video rewriting history. Countries that defeated the Mongols, which is incredible to think about because the Mongol Empire was the largest contiguous empire in history. Just look how big it got.
By these smaller countries.
So Japan was one of them.
Indonesia.
Also, are we gonna miss a big one? There's also Poland and Europe, but maybe we'll talk about that.
Initially sided with the Mongols, then turned against them. Secondly, Japan defeated.
Okay, so first of all, the Mongols were not great at ocean stuff. They had some very, very bad luck in the past. That's why they're known for having the largest contiguous empire in history. It was all connected, which is much different than just the biggest empire in history in general, the British Empire, because it was just kind of all over the place. So yeah, I mean, if you look at the key.
The Mongols twice using their typhoon power.
I mean, again, the reason why the Mongols got this big was that they were really good at riding horses, and they were really good at shooting arrows, doing archery on those horses. This obviously has nothing to do with boats. When you put them on boats, they don't have this like severe advantage. So yes, the two typhoons, kamikaze.
Vietnam under this guy's command.
Now this is very impressive what Vietnam was able to do.
Command repelled 3 Mongol invasions.
Crazy, because the Vietnamese would go on to defeat great empires like China and the French Empire, and of course the USA. They've just always been really OP. Fun fact, the Mongols actually focused more on invading the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Russia's most loyal ally, the winter, Britain's most loyal ally, the sea, and Japan's most loyal ally is a typhoon. Japanese people becoming airbenders with this one. I mean, technically you could probably argue a lot of different people ended up defeating the Mongols at one point or another, even if they started off by taking a ton of consecutive L's. There's also the Mamluks of Egypt as well. Mongolians were so OP, even God had to step in. Bro got nerfed. Hungary, Poland, India, Czechia, Austria, India, Egypt, and Italian city-states be like, am I a joke to you? So I'm saying, like, you could argue for a lot of different people that they had big dubs over the Mongol Empire. A very nice video, Mr. Geo. Please go check out all these channels. And here are my patrons.
I finally escaped from Drew's basement.
Lucas, the Canadian Christmas trees. Honk, Argentinian Grandpa, I'm DOOCHBAGGINS. Imperial Japan flag is the same as modern Japan. Koyle, please stop making this mistake. Archaeology.
aPhatNarwhal,
Connor Pavlik, DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood, Fredrik Tibblin, InquisitorXarius, Tambre, Mexican 76.